Hey guys, Spencer here. We had a lot of technical difficulties while trying to film this. It was ridiculous. We were at the point about scrapping everything we just did, but I figured we had some good content in the beginning before we lost Austin's microphone. So we're gonna run with that. There are some parts where it's a little echoey. We did everything we could. We got to figure out a better setup when we are in person, but I figured we at least put out a small episode. So yeah, without further ado, enjoy the pod.
I am no Jedi.
Your powers are weak, old man.
Always remember, your focus determines your reality.
Hello there.
General Kenobi! You don't know the power of the dark side.
And welcome back to the pod. Welcome back to Disciples of the Force, formerly known as
The Living Force podcast.
Yeah.
The Star Wars podcast.
That one. We did have some technical difficulties. Not technical, sorry. We'll get to that one in a second. We had some issues with the naming. We searched, we did as much research as we could, and I guess it was not good enough because on podcasts, Apple Podcast, there was a podcast with the same exact name.
My bad. I didn't do the research. Didn't do my due diligence, as they say. That's my fault.
So we are now switched to Disciples of the Force. And just a little tidbit for you. Go ahead and follow us on TikTok, YouTube, subscribe. Instagram, you can give us a follow, but there is going to be an issue. It's a misspelling.
Crazy.
We hired an intern. She's great, but she did mess up a little bit on it.
She's hot.
And she is me.
That's why we keep her around.
I messed up. I'm illiterate. I don't know. There's no S, so it's going to be Disciples or whatever.
Disciples for what, 2 weeks, you said?
Yeah, 2 weeks, because Instagram won't let you do it. I don't know what the security reasoning. It has to be something with that. Tech guy over here.
Right. Sure.
Wow. Also, just a really fun thing if you want to tell me about yesterday.
So, craziest thing. So, we love our tech guy here, Spencer Silva. He's also our cute intern. Whatever. He does it all around here, and we're so grateful for him. Problem was, last night, we're in town together. Our first episode was remote. He came up. We live about 4.5 hours away, so it's really awesome to be here with him. We were recording for about 25 minutes last night. Felt really good. We felt really confident. Vibes were going great. And then Spencer looks over and finds out that we were muted the whole time. So that was a waste. Then, long story short, we stayed up till 3. Couldn't record after that. Had to do it today. So if you are a dedicated fan, right, want to see these on Fridays, you're going to get that. But today, a little hang up. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. And not to mention, I got here at like 5:20. It's 6:04. We had
Crazy
other issues with trying to get this to work. It is, if I had money, I'd hire someone. That was terrible. Any Hoosh and Smoozer, welcome to the pod. We're glad you're here.
Welcome. So let's just start off how we usually do, huh? Talk about the news of the week. So when we were recording yesterday, we were like, oh, there's no Star Wars news. I was totally wrong. Yeah, as always, right? New Lego set, new Lego helmet set. It's Leia's when she sneaks into Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. You know that helmet? I think it's called a sorry.
Big fan.
It's something around there. Hard to pronounce, hard to spell. Star Wars. But yeah, so
wait,
that's
it's a set or just
no, so it's just the helmet, like the helmets we have.
That's so sick.
You know?
I gotta buy
so that's gonna be cool.
Hey, if you want to support us, Venmo me at Ellie and Spencer are getting married to Venmo.com.
Shameless, and we love it. And he'll buy Legos with it. Yeah. So that was one thing that dropped. I think other Lego stuff dropped, but I was on Instagram and I hate Instagram, so I just kept scrolling. But also the Star Wars Celebration Europe, they announced like the stars that are going there. Are you familiar with Star Wars Celebration, or are you a fake fan or what?
I'm going to have to say I'm a fake fan. I don't know what you just said to me.
So it's like Comic-Con, but just Star Wars. It's like but I think it's kind of hard to get into, pretty prestigious. But that's where they have like all the stars and everything. And so like D. Bradley Baker, our boy, is going. You know who that is?
I do know who that is.
You know who he is. Come on, tell us. Come on, tell us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, but okay. D. Bradley Baker, for those of you who don't know, does a lot of voices most
Oh wait,
notably in
hold on.
Star Wars.
Is it Klaus from
It's
American
Klaus
Dad?
from American Dad.
I didn't.
And that's why we love him.
I didn't know that was his name. Sorry, keep going.
But he also does the clones in the Clone Wars and the droids. I think, dude, I'm sorry. I think he does I know he does the clones, and I'm pretty sure he does the droids. But he's just such a great voice actor. Because, like, you think about while you're watching The Bad Batch.
Like, that's all him.
That's all one dude.
And it's all different. Yeah.
And I've seen the interviews of him, like, talking about how he came up with the voices for each of them. So cool. Like, he's just a master of his craft. Really cool guy. So he's going to be there. Giancarlo Esposito, Ashley Eckstein, who's the voice of Ahsoka. Edit that out, folks. Yeah, 2 weeks of that. Leia, little baby Leia's actor is going to be there. Who
No,
else?
if she's there, I'm not going.
Oh, you
No,
were
I'm
going
just
to go to Star Wars
No.
Celebration in Europe anyway?
I was. And no, but actually, that was a joke. I hate when people hate on actors just because of the role they play.
Especially children.
It's not their fault. They're
Yeah.
literally directors tell them how to do it.
Right.
I almost said Hunter Christensen again.
Crazy.
I always do that.
Who's Hunter Christensen?
Hunter Christensen? I'm not going to say who he is, but
Go ahead.
I know him. He's a personal friend of mine.
Right.
My boy Hayden, Anakin, may have heard of him. Like, he got a lot of hate in the prequels for his acting, but a lot of that is direction because you see him in other things. Like, oh, he can act very well. And my biggest thing is, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but it's okay because it's not Star Wars related. Robert Pattinson or Patterson?
Pattinson. Robert Pattinson.
Twilight. That is like the worst acting I've seen in my life. Dude's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's just a side, but I hate when people attack actors because like they're literally doing their job. That's how they're told to do it.
So like you just did.
Right. But mine was a
That's what you're
bit.
saying.
Mine was a joke.
So it was sincere. Anyway,
Keep going.
she's going to be there. But that's the big Star Wars news. Not that that'll affect us because we're poor. I can't even imagine going to Europe ever. I'll never make it over there.
That's crazy because I had a really good friend of mine
Really?
who went with his wife. And he never stops talking about it.
How long was he there? Like it was
The
felt
whole
like
summer. The whole
I mean,
summer.
Yeah, it was.
His name's Austin. And
That's
he's
me.
right
Okay,
next to
yeah,
me.
I've been to Europe. Whatever. I should have gone when Star Wars Celebration was going on.
You should
But no,
have.
that doesn't matter a ton to us. But it is cool for all our fans in Europe.
14.
right?
Well, in Europe, well,
Yeah,
there's a lot.
our analytics are crazy out
Yeah.
there in Europe. You Germans.
Yeah. It's all German. I think it's because that one time we said that little. No, well, yeah.
Yeah,
anyway,
borderline joke. They
yeah.
like that kind of stuff over there, don't they?
Yeah.
But let's get into Bad Batch. Huh?
Bad
So
Batch.
episodes drop Wednesday. We usually record on Thursdays, so it works pretty well. Friday. Been a couple days, settled in. What'd you think of the new episode?
Perfect. Hey, great introduction by that. I loved it. So I did watch a YouTube video that I totally found on my own with no hope of at all.
Right, that's crazy.
No, Austin sent me a video from Screen Rant. Is that who it was?
That's even crazier.
What is
Green
it?
Crush, dude?
Screen Crush. Screen Rant is one.
It's just not as good.
And it talked about all the Easter eggs in the episode, which there was a lot, but it was funny because the first thing I thought about when watching it was Indiana Jones.
Right.
Like when they're going to pick up the, I want to say, is it a crystal? I don't even know.
So yeah, it doesn't really say
it's a stone at some point.
Yeah, it's a crystal type thing.
So I thought that was really cool. A lot of stuff like that. But with that, one of the things that it's going to be kind of hard to get back to what we were talking about yesterday, but we talked about how it's really cool, and I'll just say it now. It's really cool how they're talking about how everything was like predating like the Jedi. Like this is something we've never seen before. And I think that's really cool because we have no idea. I mean, the Force, it's been around for eternity, right?
Right.
And so there's tons of things that have interacted with it, like in Rebels, fake fan alert.
No way.
Bum,
You just watched that.
what's his name?
Bendu?
Bendu.
Bendu,
Jeez.
sure.
And you know what? You can hate on me. I don't care. So Bendu, right? He's in the middle. He's not a Sith
Right.
nor a Jedi. And there had to have been tons of creatures like that before, and
Yeah.
so I think this is kind of a cool little segue to get into what that is, because I don't think, as we've talked about before,
Right.
it's going to be something they just bring up one time and then they just leave it. Like clearly this is something they're going to keep poking at.
And we were talking about that. Like Star Wars gets kind of a bad rap from fans mostly that would just stick around the Skywalker saga. Like in everything that's come out, it's within, 30 or 50 years of. But yeah, Star Wars fans get upset that we stick around the Skywalker saga all the
For sure.
time. And I think something like that, introducing something where Wanda Sykes' character, Bee, who awesome character, by the way. I like her a lot. But she's like, this has been around forever. And I think it was Tech who goes, are you talking about the Jedi? And she's like, no, older.
Mhm.
And so we were talking about this too. If you like release something like that, where you're exploring hundreds or thousands of years before the Skywalker saga into like a big screen movie, probably wouldn't do very well. Because
Right.
like casual fans would go and be like, this isn't Star Wars. This doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I think it's genius on Dave Filoni's part, introducing it through the TV shows, especially like an animated TV show
Mhm.
that really only, dedicated fans or kids maybe
Mhm.
are watching.
Mhm.
And so he can kind of warm us up to that and we can get more interested in it. And then by the time it gets to a point where we want to explore that in movies, it'll be ready for it.
Yes,
teed up.
exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. Because I mean, like you said, like if you would have seen the I call it a Pokemon looking thing in a movie, you'd like, what is it? What am I watching? This is
Right.
not Star Wars, as you mentioned. But I mean, that's the great way to do things like that. Just kind of sprinkle them in through the series, and then it's easier to come back to or look at. Yeah, for sure. And I think that something that's really cool about the Bad Batch is just its ability. Oh, well, first off, the animation. It's great.
It is great.
It's
yeah,
really
it looks
good.
fantastic.
It's really, really good.
Especially, didn't you just watch Rebels?
Yes.
So going from that to the Bad Batch,
the
crazy.
contrast is night and day. It's
Right.
It's really awesome. But no, what I do like about the Bad Batch is that they have such they have free range because it's like we've talked about it last podcast of the era that it's in, but as well they're able to go on these quests that are so weird and so niche
That's it.
because they got to make a living, but they're on the run from the Empire, so they got to just do scavenger stuff, looking for treasure hunts, which is like the second time this season, but. It's really cool because by going on these niche like little treasure hunts, like if it's treasure, clearly there's gonna be some weird mysterious aspect.
Right.
Of it. So they can really get into some cool stuff that we've never seen, and I am excited about that.
Right. And I like what you're saying there because it feels like some of the Star Wars shows that have been made recently, like they do it just for fan service. Like Book of Boba Fett, they had no direction in that. Like they were going for. I mean, I think they saw the success of The Mandalorian and they were like, yeah, we can do another Western shooter off of our IP that everybody likes more than The Mandalorian at that point, and it just doesn't work. And same with like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like these are our legacy characters. We don't really need to work that hard on a story. And it really sucks for the fans, right?
Yeah.
But with these characters who a lot less people care about, they can do fun stuff like Ryan Airy on that video was talking about how the pod racing episode last week, not pod racing, riot racing.
That's right. It's not pod racing.
Which is like an homage to pod racing, of course, but also to George Lucas's first movie, American Graffiti. And then this is like his other movies, Indiana Jones, this episode specifically. And so it'll be really cool to see what they do going forward. Like, are they going to keep, because that's what Star Wars is all about, right? And Dave Filoni talks about that a lot. And so does Jon Favreau, being inspired by the things that inspired George Lucas at the beginning. Because Star Wars was based off of like Flash Gordon,
right.
the serials. It was based off of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. So it's like this blend between sci-fi, samurai, and then like a spaghetti western, like Man with No Name.
Right.
That's what Boba Fett was pretty much based on, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as they keep going, if they look back to the past, it's like poetry, rhymes, right? As Papa George says. But I think that'll be like the key to success for Star Wars shows going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. I've never heard of them going to watch what he was watching to get inspiration, which is really cool because, I mean, also his first movie, I forget the name.
American Graffiti?
No,
the one he made in film school. The THX 731 or something. It's a complicated name.
Yes,
Let me
it
look
is.
it up.
And because that is like Andor, Austin's favorite show.
So good.
He loves it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of like dystopian, like they're all, and it's really cool because it's like them pulling from all the things that George had done is making really great shows,
right?
Because, they're kind of tapping into what he was getting into. And I think that's just, if they can keep doing stuff like that, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a good turn of the page for Star Wars.
Sure will. And that's a great point too. The reason that still works and the reason it worked to adapt all those things that seemed kind of foreign to each other into a space fantasy, a space opera, like that tells you that those stories and those themes are timeless.
Mhm.
So like we can always go back on them.
Right.
It may get repetitive in the future, whatever. But I don't think right now, at least for me, it's not. Because we deviated from good Star Wars for a long time.
Good amount
2
of time.
years, right? And getting back to that, will be awesome. So I like the direction they're going in. THX 1138, by the way.
Yeah. If you knew that off the top of your head, you would have been the realest fan. But it's all right.
Yeah, no. We both read George Lucas's book, right?
I didn't know you did. When did you read it?
It's been like a year now.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
We should talk about that more.
We should. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Well, it's great.
It's
great.
It is really good.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Married to the chair of Starbucks now.
And he
he's
doesn't
brilliant.
really have a chin, but that's fine.
Hey, we love people without chins. We can name a few.
Um,
Just kidding. I don't
I
know.
was like,
I
what?
can't. I don't even know what I'd be
Okay.
thinking of.
No, I feel like there's one. This is what I talked about yesterday. There's one other thing. It's like I don't know what it is
About the Bad Batch
about the Bad
episode.
Batch. I can't remember. It was something to do with, Geez, I don't know. I'm not even gonna try to act like I know, but I will say something that we talked about yesterday was, how Sid. They're really heavily foreshadowing that. What is she? Something's gonna go bad. Something's gonna turn. And in the video, what's the guy's name? I gotta give him credit.
Ryan Erie?
Ryan talked about how this is probably why they're introducing Fee, because she's kind of gonna be this glue or that connection between the Bad Batch and Sid when it all goes south. When she tries to screw him over, or maybe even vice versa.
Yeah.
That would be cool if they did something like that. But
Yeah.
I think that's really, smart throwing this character in, because we've never. from the first season, it was just kind of. Because when did Sid come in? She came out halfway, or was she in the very beginning? I don't remember very well.
It was probably the third episode, I think, because there were the first two where it kind of showed them leaving Camino, and then
And which is really cool because the first season we talked about how it's just was just her giving them missions and they go, like, here's a mission, go. Here's a mission, go. But this season, starting off for 5 episodes and 5, it's been different each time. We're getting. You're getting I always said marksman. You get crosshairs.
Marks.
His story, like, a lot more deep, like giving his own episodes, which is really cool.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's going in an awesome direction, especially like we talked about this too. And there are a lot of things we talked about yesterday in 25 minutes.
We're probably going to say that 1,000
Yeah.
times. Don't be mad.
So bear with us. We're not cutting it out in post. Or you're not. Dude, I just lost my train of thought.
Sure.
What were we just saying? Oh, I like how the characters are way more fleshed out this season, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got time to do that. And again, it goes back to being like a long-running TV show with a smaller budget that you can take time to do that. Omega is like a really great character. She's not a Mary Sue. She doesn't just have these abilities off the bat. She's learned, and she is, force sensitive. We'll see to what extent, but she's just smart and she learns and she has like depth of emotion. I think she's just a really well-written character. And all the other members of the Bad Batch, I like what they're doing this season where they're kind of splitting up and they're all getting like their own independent personality that we're seeing. Right. And I think they meant to have that from the beginning, but it's cool to see it play out more,
And like you said, I think it's awesome you're getting their development, like you're seeing.
Right.
They're all going to have character arcs. Like they're all going to change. And that's really awesome because, it's hard to say because, when you look at a movie, it's easy to nitpick that, like, whoa, okay, now they're just amazing. Right. But they only have an hour 30 to 2 hours, or sometimes 3 hours. And they're good movies, 3 hours to develop the character. And it's like, if they do it good, it's hard. Like, there's very few movies that you're like, oh, that was a really, like, how it all progressed was really good. Because sometimes they just go, oh, we gotta throw it. But with a series like this, Bad Batch, they have, as you mentioned, just so much time to, like, develop the character. And, like, that happens. Like, for example, going back to Rebels, Ezra hated him. So annoying in the beginning. I was like, it's just an annoying little, and then going on towards the end, I was like, I love him. His stubbornness goes away. He becomes a lot more mature. He's learning, okay, yep, I can't do that. And you'll see sometimes poke up a bit, but it kind of goes away. And I really like that with series have that ability to do that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I always say that I hate child actors or stories about children or whatever. Because I'm a grown up, right?
Yeah.
I just hate them. But that is one great thing about coming of age stories is like everybody's been there. We can all relate to that. Like you were, I mean, yeah, you were that annoying kid.
No.
You know, you were the
No.
guy that like everybody looked at and like they were pissed off. You know,
Right.
And so it's cool to see that in these characters and then see them develop and change because everybody can relate to that. Like I said, you know, so
And it's really cool. And I think going back, like when they do movie series, like, you know, trilogies, the correct term.
Sure.
Like Anakin, right? Like
Right.
the kid who is, you know, that's what I call pod racing, right? To this like dark, just like individual who's just kind of, you can just tell like life is beating him down. Like he is just beat, which is like really cool because like you get to see that. So like I think trilogies have the option to really get a good character development,
Right?
Because they can, because clearly it's like, oh, there's year gaps in between this, and so anyways, sorry.
No, that is great. That is great. I think also one thing that really benefits Anakin's character is the Clone Wars, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of jarring if you try to watch stuff in order. So you watch episode 1, and that's great. I love Phantom Menace. And then Attack of the Clones, he's like this awkward, broody, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the Clone Wars, he's charming, he's cool.
So great.
He's still like passionate, and you see those strikes of the dark side every once in a while. But it is hard when you get to the end of season 7.
Go into episode 3.
Yeah, he's just so nice to Ahsoka, so sweet.
Yes.
So, that part where they're on the bridge, him and Obi Wan, and they have to take out the droid commander.
Yes.
And I just remember seeing that, and I was like, dude, this guy is so cool, so charming, so funny.
Yes.
And then it's kind of jarring in live action because then he's again that broody, wouldn't act like that at all.
Yeah.
But I think taking that with a grain of, like, my Anakin is a mix, you know, between Matt Lanter and Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think, like you mentioned, like when he like with Ahsoka, he is so like kind and patient person. And he's like, no, you can't do that because of this. And then going back to, you know, you're saying episode 3, and he's just kind of like, why, master?
Right.
You know. But I also think it's kind of cool because it shows like so much has happened in his life that we're just kind of coming into that point. Like he was like a happy, really fun, charismatic guy.
Yeah.
And then boom, you know, he's had so many things happen to him. He's having the dreams. Padme is dying, right? Like the love of his life. The only one he really has other than Obi-Wan, you know?
And I mean, Obi-Wan, they talk about this all the time. He's not that present. You know, he did great in his role, but there's that theory that if Qui-Gon lived on, that's why it's called Duel of the Fates, you know, is because if he would have lived on, Anakin would have never gone to the dark side. Obviously, that wasn't the will of the Force, right?
Right.
Like, he had to die. But Obi-Wan was never that great as a parental figure.
Right.
He was too young as a Padawan. He didn't want to take on a Padawan.
Yep.
He said that. He didn't want him from the beginning. And they developed this great relationship together, but at the same time, he was never fit to be a father. And then, dude, that's what's beautiful about Star Wars, because then in the original trilogy, you see like the regret. And even in Obi-Wan, for its flaws, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, you see his regret of not being that father figure, being like more of a brother figure.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. And that's why I love it, because in episode 3, that's what he says. You were my brother. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's just so cool. Like, he wasn't a father figure.
Right.
He was a brother. And I think about that all the time watching, because if you watch him kind of as a brother, like, you see it all makes more sense. Like, it's not like a father-son, like, well, no, you got to do this. And, like, always they're constantly nurturing him. It's like, nah, he really was just a brother. And and I just love that. Because when he says that and you watch it, you're like, wow, that's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's what Star Wars is. That's why there's a podcast dedicated to it.
That's why there's 100. That's why there was another podcast with the same name as us. Isn't that crazy? That's how small the market is. Big the market is. Do you believe there were some people that just haven't seen the Clone Wars? Like some of our friends who claim to be
Star Wars
fans. Just crazy.
Like, I'll probably, when it comes to trivia, when it comes to like the OG trivia, that friend we're talking about, he'd kick my trash, right?
Right.
He would know probably some more like pronunciation, because sometimes I'm not amazing at trivia, but I never have been. I've never claimed to be a fighter. But, you know, with that being said, you know, and it's so crazy that he won't watch it. Like, you just have to get over that little bit of pride. Like, oh, it's animation. Dude, it's amazing.
I don't want to say this on the pod. I don't want this to be recorded.
You're saying
I'm about to say it. Star Wars, now that I have knowledge of what happens in the Clone Wars, I think if it didn't exist, the prequels I would not like the prequels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we kind of grew up in a different generation. We're lingering on this, which is great. We got a lot to talk about. We grew up in a kind of different generation. Like we were born in 1998.
Sure, same day of birth, if you're wondering.
Don't say it. You don't get our first last names and our birthday.
You're right. It's
But, you know, the prequels were just coming out. So we grew up, you know, the last one was 2005. I remember when it came out, you know, being super excited for it. So we had that appreciation kind of built into us for the prequels. But, I mean, in their time, they were hated by the OG lovers, you know.
Which makes sense. Like,
which totally makes sense.
I would too. I'd be like,
right.
What is this midi-chlorian count? What are you talking about?
But then you watch Clone Wars and it's like, this was great
Yeah.
with that supplementation, you know?
Exactly. And that's what I tell my dad, because he just likes episode 3 like most people.
Like most sane people. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, but they're so deep, and that's like you're saying, because you're just smart and I love you. But the Clone Wars like helps with all of it, like just the glue, because like the first and second episode are so like bureaucratic, like all of this, you know, what's going on, and that plays into the Clone Wars, and they really do a good job of showing why it's so hectic and so crazy and what they're trying to fight against.
Yeah, it's great, you know, and that's, we've talked about this before too, I think on our last podcast, but that's what they're trying to do with the sequels right now. You know, they know that they were received poorly. The sequel trilogy did not go as planned.
No, it did not. Many bumps in the road for them.
But what they're working to, even the Bad Batch this far in advance, is working to make sense of the prequel or the sequel trilogy, which is crazy. Yeah. You know? So I think in 5-10 years, we'll have an appreciation for the sequel trilogy more so than we do now. I
agree, because I think they have the ability. That's the beauty of Star Wars. You sent me that TikTok a while back about like the solution to Star Wars is more Star Wars. Yeah. And like that is so true. Like if they keep putting out things, they're able to, there's sort of all these plot holes or all these things that people don't like about the sequels, they can fix or kind of mend, like, well, this is why this was going on.
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, for example, with Mandalorian, like we're gonna have to figure out what's going on. How does the I almost said the Galactic Empire. No, what are they this time?
So it's post Empire. So they're like remnants of the Empire. But it's leading into the First Order.
First Order, that's the one. Yeah. And because I mean, that's why they're trying to find someone with a high species with a high
midi-chlorian
thank you, count. Because Palpatine Snoke, isn't it Snoke that they believe, that's the theory, is Snoke. That's why they're trying to get Grogu so they can make Snoke, or what?
I think that might be confirmed now. I'm not sure, but dude, this is the mess with the sequel trilogy. So Palpatine returned. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Somehow. That was writing. That's what 100 people were like, yeah, that's perfect.
They were like, that's great. And they got paid to do it.
Billions probably. Anyways.
Insane. The sequels are fine.
They're fine.
Whatever.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it in this podcast. But yeah, I think that's confirmed that Snoke was a failed attempt by Palpatine to make a clone of himself.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then, of course, he made a clone of himself that then was Rey's father. And then he was also a clone of himself in the last one. It just doesn't.
Talk about Attack of the Clones, am I right?
Yeah, seriously. Jeez. But yeah, that's one. So I think that's confirmed. Okay. But yes, they need a high midichlorian count.
Right, so they could clone.
Yeah. And we're going to see more of the cloner guy. I don't remember his name. In The Mandalorian, because you see him in the trailer.
I think it's Matthew Stafford.
It is Matthew.